Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. A major escalation again in the Middle East. We'll speak with a Middle East expert on the conflict and the prospect of it growing in the region. That is up first. On the provincial election today, seniors are speaking up on this National Seniors Day. We'll hear from CARP BC and we'll ask you, from healthcare to home care to housing, what's a top election issue for older adults in BC? Plus, Jeopardy champ and now book show host Mattea Roach. That's in half an hour. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. We start with the Middle East conflict and fears of regional escalation. This morning, Iran fired dozens of ballistic missiles into Israel. Air raid sirens sounded across Israel, and residents were ordered to remain close to bomb shelters. Today's attack is reportedly over. Here's CBC News senior correspondent Sasha Petrusik with the latest from Jerusalem.
There are fewer people on the streets. The all clear has been given. They do not need to stay in bomb shelters, which are pretty much in every building here, sometimes in every apartment. There's safe rooms that are there as well. So people have been told they can come out, but it is definitely a much more subdued atmosphere than you would normally find on the streets. The tension has been rising all day long, and people were surprised initially, frightened, of course, once the sirens started going off, once those alerts started coming across on our phones, warning of the ballistic missiles being launched from Iran. We had been already told that they take about 12 minutes to arrive here, so not much time to get into bomb shelters. And then afterwards, most people spent their time inside those bomb shelters. If you happen to be able to see outside, you would see the streaks in the sky, and you would hear the booms that the previous guest described. It looks a lot like fireworks, except, of course, the atmosphere is entirely different, and you feel this sense that you are in the middle of a war.
That's a CBC's Sasha Petrusik reporting from Jerusalem. Now, in a statement taking responsibility for the attack, Iran referenced a Hezbollah leader and Iranian Revolutionary Guard general who were killed in an Israeli airstrike last week in Beirut. In recent weeks, Israel has unleashed airstrikes across large parts of Lebanon, killing more than 1,000 people, according to the health ministry. And today, Israel began limited ground operations in southern Lebanon. Ottawa's Christy Mahdi teaches at Notre Dame University in Lebanon, and she spoke to the early edition this morning.
1 hour after the next, we see new developments. There's the ground incursion in the south, and there's also bombings in Beirut, on the Bekaa, on the south, the Bekaa, the north as well. So a lot is happening, and there are the humming of drones in Beirut and the suburb. That is continuous. It's suffocating. It's like there's a dark omen in the skies. So it's nonstop. It's 24/7. So a lot is happening.
And reaction from Ottawa today. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly spoke to reporters this morning. She said Canada unreservedly condemned today's attack. And Joly said it was important Israel defend itself, but also important that the war cease.
Then the risk to people, Canadians in particular in Lebanon, the risk of an all-out war and the risk to their own lives.
Well, right now we're seeing that there is a war, and we just saw that Iran attacked Israel. So, and there is also a war going on in Lebanon. So we are in a scenario where there is a war in the Middle East. And so that's why I just said this is a very dangerous time in the Middle East.
Is it Canada's position that Israel should not respond to Iran? I mean, you've called for a ceasefire vis-a-vis Hezbollah, but this attack from Iran, is Canada asking Israel not to respond in kind?
We need to make sure that there's no escalation. Of course, Israel needs to be able to protect itself, and that's why we'll continue to support its security, and we'll support, of course, through the Iron Dome. At the same time, we need to make sure that parties sit down and the war stops, because we can see that what will happen, there will be even more further escalation, more innocent civilians, including women and children, die. And that's what I said at the UN yesterday. We need this war to stop.
That's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly speaking just over an hour ago. Joining us now is Fawaz Gergis, a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics and Political Science, author of What Really Went Wrong: The West and the Failure of Democracy in the Middle East. Professor, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure.
What will be the impact of this attack from Iran today? What does it do in terms of escalation in this regional conflict?
Well, really, for your own viewers, Iran has shown tremendous restraint in the past 12 months. Israel has tried to humiliate Iran, assassinated its top leaders, assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas in Tehran, assassinated some of the top leaders of Iran's allies in the region, in particular in Lebanon. What Iran was really trying to do today was to restore deterrence. And just to give your viewers a kind of a glimpse, Iran does not really want, I'm not defending Iran, I'm just being an academic giving the big picture. Iran informed the United States through a Western European leader that it was planning to attack Israel a few hours in advance. It did the same thing in April. So really, Iran was retaliating because Iran wants, if it did not retaliate, Iranian leaders fear that Netanyahu will keep escalating and escalating. And of course, Israeli Prime Minister waging all-out war in Gaza, and now he's waging all-out war in Lebanon. What I fear, we have reached a tipping point. What Iran did today could give the Israeli Prime Minister a justification in order to really attack strategic targets in Iran, including industrial and, in fact, its nuclear program. And this could really precipitate a wider regional conflict, which we have been warning about for the past 12 months.
And so we're here, we just heard from Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly. She spoke a lot about Canada's goal of diplomacy, still focusing on diplomacy. What role does Canada, what role does the United States play right now then?
Well, look, with all due respect to the Canadian Foreign Minister and the American Foreign Minister and the French Foreign Minister, you cannot really understand what has happened in the past 12 months without understanding the colossal failure of American strategy and Western strategy. I mean, the Biden administration has failed to put an end to the bloodletting in Gaza. He has not used leverage in order to convince Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to accept a permanent ceasefire. I mean, think, what is the strategic goal of the Biden administration? Was to prevent an escalation of the war in Gaza into neighboring countries. Here we are. The war has not only expanded into neighboring Lebanon, now it's becoming a wider regional conflict. So the Canadian Foreign Minister and the American Foreign Minister, they keep talking about diplomacy and they're calling on Israel for a ceasefire. What has Canada, what has the United States done in order to really convince the Israeli leadership to de-escalate, to put an end to the bloodletting in Gaza? Because once you have a ceasefire in Gaza, it's the key to de-escalation and to preventing a wider regional conflict. So the reason why we're talking, you and I, Michelle, about the risks of a regional conflict is because of the failure of American strategy and its Western allies, including Canada, with all due respect.
What does it need to do? What does the U.S. need to do with regard to Iran here? Because Iran also warned that this attack just represented a first wave. I didn't elaborate on that. So what should be the approach there?
Well, look what I fear now, Michelle, for your own viewers. What I fear is that Israel will retaliate. In fact, they said they will retaliate tonight. And they could retaliate really big times. And if they do, Iran will retaliate on much bigger scales. So Iran fired 180 missiles today. I mean, look, there was not even a single, thanks God, not a single Israeli civilian who was killed, because it tells you a great deal that Iran does not really want to trigger all-out war. It does not kill Iranian civilians, even though, I mean, you just mentioned, Michelle, Israel has killed more than 1,000 Lebanese in just a few days and injured 2,400.
Is that also
And
because of its ability to defend itself? Is that also because of interception?
No, because the reality is the United States has played a major role in helping Israel defend itself, while Israel really used, I mean, extensive, vast firepower to kill both combatants and civilians. So what I fear is that Israel, if Israel retaliates tonight, as it says it will, Iran could fire 1,000 ballistic missiles in retaliation. And here we are, sadly. This is really will be a wider regional conflict, all-out war. So the United States and Canada and France and Britain, where I am, they should really play a more active role in trying to end the war in Gaza, de-escalate vis-a-vis Israel and Lebanon, and have a political vision to resolve the underlying problem. And that's really the underlying problem, is the ability of the Palestinians to be free, to have a state of their own, and for the Israelis and the Palestinians to live, side by side in peace. This is really what needs to be done in terms of the midterm and the long term, and that's what the United States and its allies could do.
Are you hopeful? It is now, as you touched on, a year since Hamas attacked into Israel.
No, not at all. In fact, I fear truly, I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, I see more escalation. I see more civilians killed. I see more displaced people. I don't see the United States really playing any. There are no adults in the room, Michelle. There are no really global leadership. The United States has really forsaken its global leadership. The United States has taken side 100%. It's given Israel 100% support, and Benjamin Netanyahu is having the time of his life because he has no rail guards, nothing at all. He could do whatever he wants. And that's why we need the global leadership. We need firefighters. We don't need arsonists. And I hope that Canada, being a peace-loving nation, would be really the firefighter that put an end to the fires, not just in the Middle East, in many theaters in the world as well.
Professor Gerges, thank you very much for your time. It's distressing indeed.
Thanks.
Fawaz Gerges is Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics. It's 12:18 now. This is BC Today. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. To the provincial election now here at home. This morning, the BC Green Party and its leader, Sonia Furstenau, released their party's election platform. And the BC Conservative leader, John Rustad, made an announcement from Brackendale, and it was related to energy demand and how to meet it in BC. Meanwhile, NDP leader David Eby was in the southeastern part of the province, making an announcement related to rural health care. Also today, BC seniors are speaking about their issues as it is National Seniors Day. And we'd like to hear from you. What is the top election issue for seniors in BC? And do you think seniors' issues are getting enough attention in this election? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. We're going to hear from the group CARP, the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, and its BC office in just a moment. Again, you can call us now. Let us know what is the top election issue for seniors in BC. Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Twenty minutes past the hour now, and today is National Seniors Day, and various advocates are using today to highlight issues affecting seniors in this provincial election. You can call us and let us know what you think is a top issue for seniors. And as well, the group CARP, or Canadian Association of Retired Persons in BC, has issued a list of 5 top issues affecting older adults in the province. Ramona Captain is with CARP BC's chapter. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me.
Is CARP BC supporting one party in this election?
Oh no, we're completely nonpartisan. We approach all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, and we don't favor any one party. We do hold their feet to the fire, however, and any promises made, we keep on top of them. Particularly when promises are 5 and 10 years out and it's just before an election. We need changes now, and CARP sent out the CARP 5 recently to all our members, and we also sent a letter addressing these CARP 5 demands, or asks as you might call them, to all the party leaders.
Okay.
One
Perhaps
reply-
you can tell us about those 5 issues that you would like to highlight.
Oh, of course. So the first one was free vaccines, and particularly the shingles vaccine. The second was the healthcare worker shortage, the shortage of doctors. Many older adults, in fact, many people, do not have a family doctor. Emergency rooms are closing, doctors are getting worn out, and there really needs to be a change here. We also are asking for better home care, funding of better home care, tax relief for caregivers, and also for home adaptations, because many older adults want to age in place. They want to stay at home. And also transit fares are very important because not all seniors are retired. Many of them still work. And also there's the issue of when you do have to hang up your keys, you need public transit because you're no longer driving. And the Minister of Transportation told me recently, well, seniors can travel in off-peak hours. No, we can't, because if you call your employer or your doctor and you say, well, I'll be there in off-peak hours, you know what kind of a reaction you're going to get from that. So all of it is very important, but may I talk about the shingles vaccine?
Sure, that
Because-
would be your first ask, is free access to vaccines for seniors, including shingles.
Yes, and we did get a reply from the Conservatives, from John Rustad, saying that there would be financial coverage for vaccines. And specifically, I found out from my own local candidate that it would include the shingles vaccine. Now, I've had shingles twice, and it's probably the worst thing you would ever want. I had it on my face. Great big blisters, almost went into the eye. Painful,
Yeah.
like you would not believe. What we got from the BC NDP was that they are funding high-dose flu vaccines. They're going to be available free. But as far as the shingles vaccine, they're still studying the recommendations made by the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, NACI. Now, NACI has been saying for a very long time that the shingles vaccine should be publicly funded. It should be free. The BC Seniors Advocate has also said this in his recent report this past summer. So, in fact, CARP has been asking for this free shingles vaccine forever and a day, and yet the NDP are dragging their heels. Why? Why? We just don't understand. It would keep people out of emergency rooms, out of hospitals, save your eye if you get it on your face, and heaven forbid it goes into your eye. It would, vaccines are one of the major things that keep seniors safe.
Can
It
I
keeps
ask you,
them
Ramona? I'm
from
sorry that you experienced shingles, and it sounds like you're saying that these issues have not been paid enough attention to. Do you feel like in this election campaign, other issues are kind of overshadowing these issues that you're raising?
Well, of course, there are many, many things that that are we need fixing in so many areas. Housing, the safer program for people who can't afford rents. There are so many, many issues, and the whole world seems to be exploding with wars. And we just heard your interview with the person about what's happening in the Middle East, and there's Ukraine, the war there going on. So there are huge, huge issues, but we have to concentrate on what's happening here at home. We do have an election coming up. Seniors vote. We all go out and vote. So the parties really need to be listening to us because it's going to make a huge difference. I do know that seniors here in Surrey, British Columbia, are absolutely furious about what the province has done regarding the police service, foisting the Surrey Police Service on the municipality and taking municipalities' rights away. So I'm fearful of what's going to happen in Surrey ridings. As for the rest of the province, we need doctors, and the NDP are saying they're getting them, but I mean, right at the last minute before an election, what happened in the 7 years prior? I know we've had COVID, but still, something needs to be done.
Ramona,
And
if you don't mind, I'm going to take a call here from one of our callers, and we have been asking people what are the top seniors issues in this election. And as you say, issues that are general issues do affect seniors, housing, healthcare. So what are the issues that seniors are paying attention to? I'd love to hear from you as well. My guest is Ramona Captain from CARP BC. Erica is on the line in Vancouver. Hi there, Erica. Hi, Erica. Go ahead. What's the issue that's affecting you? I think we've lost our connection with Erica. Let's go to Eric in Vernon. Hi, Eric. Okay. Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Oh,
Go
good.
ahead.
Hi. I just maybe a slightly different take. I mean, I think there are many seniors really struggling in BC and across Canada. What I think should be a top of mind amongst seniors, and especially because your guest just mentioned that seniors vote, they must be listened to, is this whole concept of intergenerational fairness. I'm a modest income senior. Okay, I'm going to have to watch my pennies, but I'm far more worried, or as worried, about young people and what they're facing these days. I remember what it was like to be a young person, not have a lot of money, and the only thing I haven't seen change over the decades is people's wages and the amount of money they have as younger people. While rents, housing costs, everything has skyrocketed.
Okay.
So I really see politicians trying to play off the generations against each other. I mean, most recently, this ridiculous thing with the Bloc Québécois saying everyone 64 or 65 to 74 should get a 10% increase in their OAS.
This is to be equal with older seniors, yeah.
Yes, but I recognize many seniors. I used to run a seniors organization. Trust me, I know how much many seniors struggle, but many seniors don't. And to lump us all together as some homogeneous group of high needs people is not helpful. I'm a fan of Paul Kershaw's Generation Squeeze concept in his articles, where he talks about the costs of some of the money given to seniors, and yet not a generation that across the board needs that help. I think young people need it as much, or probably more.
Eric, thank you so much for the call. And that is something we heard about in the federal budget, that generational fairness. Eva is up next now in Surrey. Hi, Eva. What is the issue, do you think, that is top of mind for seniors in this provincial election?
Well, I was heartened to hear that David Eby announced, $1,000 for seniors and low-income families immediately. And I think it's disingenuous, because $1,000 is really just a tax benefit that's multiplied by 5.06%, which turns out to be only $50 at the end of the day at the tax season. So I wish that, these kind of announcements would be clarified like that.
Okay. And Eva,
Thank you.
thank you very much. So it sounds like affordability, a top issue for Eva there. And the NDP did make an announcement of tax cut benefits that David Eby said would deliver $1,000 in a tax cut for the average family. How much? I wonder if you've done the math around that, Ramona, and as you mentioned, we're seeing a lot of announcements, right? As we get closer to the election, how much are you watching those affordability announcements and how they might affect, as we heard, lower income seniors, for example, who may need it more?
Well, that's a very good point the caller made, but for some reason, it's like we're referred to as a silver tsunami, as if we're taking over and we're taking things from other generations. A lot of seniors are helping their kids. They're babysitting. They're giving them money for down payments. I mean, seniors have worked very hard. We deserve what we have given to society. It's time we get something back. And this whole idea that we're taking away from others, it's just not true. It's just not true. I don't believe that. Of course, everybody is in need, but seniors particularly are often overlooked because of ageism. Ageism is a horrible thing all across Canada.
And can I ask you, what's been the response then? You mentioned about the shingles vaccine, but what's been the response to your letter that you've sent highlighting the top five, as you say?
Well, like I said, the Conservatives have said that they are going to fund the free shingles vaccine. The NDP are still studying it, and the Greens, I don't know. I haven't heard from the Greens. They have not responded directly to CARP's letter.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for raising these issues today. Good to speak with you.
Thank you for having me.
Ramona Captain is Chief Advocacy and Communications Officer for the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, or CARP's, BC chapter. It's 12:32 now, Pacific time. You're with BC Today here on CBC. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Michelle Elliott. And coming up in our next half hour, we have a very special guest on hand, Mattea Roach, 23-time Jeopardy champ, and now a champion here on CBC, a champion of books, in fact. They are hosting a new show called Bookends, and it's conversations with authors and writers. We would love to hear from you. What's a book you would like to recommend to Mattea? An author you would like to hear about? And if you were to meet an author in your life, who would it be? Is there someone you've always wanted to meet or hear from or speak to? Taking your calls, we have a CBC Books prize pack to give away as well. That's coming up in the next half hour, right after this CBC News Update and Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. NDP leader David Eby has pledged a pair of new healthcare initiatives. He says his government would extend the job protection period for people with illnesses to 27 weeks, up from the current 8 days. Eby says a new Democrat government would also cover travel costs for cancer treatments and extend employment protections for people with serious illnesses. The BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau says her party's election platform is aimed at creating an economy that serves the people, with more taxes on the wealthy that would support wellness. She's proposing a tax rate of 18% for corporate profits above $1 billion and the doubling of existing property tax rates for homes assessed at more than $3 million. Meanwhile, John Rustad's Conservatives have unveiled their vision for powering the province with what they describe as affordable, reliable, and independent energy. Rustad says that includes eliminating NDP government climate policies and exploring nuclear energy as a power source for the province. And now the forecast on the north coast. Showers this afternoon with strong winds and a high of 11. Highs up to 12 with a chance of showers and thunderstorms in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, a high of 12 with a chance of showers and thunderstorms as well. Highs up to 19 degrees and mainly cloudy this afternoon in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a bit windy with a chance of showers and a high of 17. And a few showers this afternoon in the Fraser Valley, mainly cloudy in Metro Vancouver and Greater Victoria, with highs around 14. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Rob, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's Robert Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And lots more throughout the day here on CBC and on radio. Here's what's coming up on the Coast this afternoon.
Michelle, hi there. It's Gloria Makarenko here, inviting you to join us for On the Coast this afternoon. Now, there's a new film out by a familiar face for Much Music fans, or a familiar voice if you're a regular CBC listener. Artist Sukyin Lee is going to join us to talk about her new film, Paying for It. So the film tells the true and frank story of the end of Sukyin's relationship with Canadian cartoonist Chester Brown and his subsequent decision to start paying for sex. It's playing at the Vancouver International Film Festival coming up. Also, people seem to be increasingly curious about magnesium as a dietary supplement. There are all sorts of claims being floated, but how do these claims stack up against the science? Health columnist Dr. Iris Gorfinkel will join us to break it down. So I hope you can join us for On the Coast between 3 and 6.
In just a couple of moments, we will speak with Mattea Roach about their new book show called Bookends, and it's lovely. The idea is when the book ends, that's when the conversation begins. So we would love to have that conversation with you as well as with Mattea Roach in just a moment. Right now, we have been taking your calls on seniors' issues in this provincial election, and Penny is on the line in Vancouver. Hi, Penny.
Hi.
Hi, thanks so much for calling. And what's the top issue for you?
For me, the top issue is help for caregivers. By that, I mean people like myself that are caring for my husband at home who has a critical progressive illness. I'm sure many of your listeners are in the same boat where we've been thrust into a role we never wanted and aren't trained for, and that it's exhausting and impossible to keep up, having to look after somebody's complex needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I don't see this addressed anywhere. And interestingly, there's always talk about $10 a day childcare. How about $10 a day adult daycare, which actually, in fact, does exist. There's some excellent adult daycare centers, but there's not nearly enough of them. And there's inconsistency around the province. For example, in some regions you can have 2 days a week, and others you can have 3 or 4 days a week. In some of them you can have an overnight stay. So there are actually options already out there that could be expanded and could be helpful, because I think most people know that it's better to keep someone at home as long as you can, but it is almost impossible. And if you're paying for it, it is minimum of $15,000 to $20,000 a month, and that eats through a line of credit or bankrupts you pretty quickly. And that is what so many people like myself are doing.
Penny, very good to hear from you. And it seems that you are right, that many people have the same experience. And that is one of the issues that CARP, whom we spoke with a few minutes ago, is raising. They're calling for funding for better home care, tax relief to caregivers, and for home adaptations as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
That's Penny calling us from Vancouver. If you want to let us know more about what are the top election issues for seniors in BC, do send us an email, bctoday@cbc.ca. 12:40 now, and we have the pleasure of welcoming a special guest. They were the beloved 23-time Jeopardy champion back in 2022. now they have a new job, and that is as host of CBC's new books program. It's called Bookends, and it features interviews with authors, both big name and rising stars. And we're pleased to welcome Mattea Roach for a conversation here on BC Today. You can call in to have a chance to chat with Mattea and to win a CBC Books Prize pack as well. Let us know right now, what is the book that you're reading? Perhaps you want to recommend it to others and for the show. And if there was an author you could meet and talk to yourself, who would it be? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone, and your name will be put into a draw for a prize package of 5 books from authors who have been featured on Bookends. It will include Tanya Talaga's new book, The Knowing. So you can call us, and again, our question to you, recommend a book to us and tell us about an author you've always wanted to meet. And Mattea Roach, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, congratulations on your new show. It kind of feels fitting, right? That here you are hosting a show all about knowledge.
I guess so, yeah. And I mean, I had such a wonderful experience appearing on Canada Reads with CBC Books last spring. And so it felt like a natural progression from that as well.
Well, speaking of career progression, I mean, going from Jeopardy to podcast hosting to being part of Canada Reads and now hosting a book show, does it kind of feel like your career has become a fairy tale of sorts?
It feels a little bit fake and made up still sometimes. I think that the reality set in when the first episode of Bookends aired and people were actually sending me messages saying, hey, I listened and here's what I thought. But yeah, you know, this is a job that's a dream job for so many people. And I think a lot of folks who work in radio feel very lucky all the time to get to do it. But
sure do.
I didn't set out, you know, I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't set out to have my own radio show. And so I sometimes wake up in the morning and I'm like, how did this happen?
Winning Jeopardy 23 times in a row might have had something to do with it. Well, tell us about, I imagine books have played a big role, a significant role in your life from a young age. Would that be the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have been kind of engaged with books and loved reading since basically before I can even remember. I was recently helping my mom clean out her house. She was preparing to downsize and move. And I found, as we were looking through old photos and family mementos, so many photos of me as a baby, you know, 6 months old, and I'd be sitting on the couch with one of my parents and they'd be reading me a book. So, you know, as soon as I could read on my own, I was reading on my own. And then, you know, I would read out loud to my younger siblings. I was the kid who would get in trouble in school for sneakily reading a book kind of under my desk when I should have been listening to the teacher. So in a way, you know, again, I would have never thought, oh, I should be hosting a show about books on radio. But my love of reading has been a huge part of my whole life.
Are there certain books that stay with you or that you go back to time and again?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, you know, books can be a great form of escapism, but books can also be seriously life-changing when you feel perhaps seen by an author or represented by a character in a way that you maybe didn't even know that you needed. So I would say like the top book that I have gone back to for, I think it's been 8 years now since I first read it, is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, which is a grief memoir. She talks about her father's passing when she was 19 or 20, and it also sort of chronicles her queer coming of age story around that same time. And it's a graphic novel. It's just like the most powerful piece of writing that I've, you know, felt the most affected by. And I find the thing that's so beautiful about it is every time I return to it, I see new things that I didn't notice the previous time, whether that's details in the art or, you know, events have happened in my life that cause me to reflect differently on the story that's being told.
Yeah.
So that's like, for me, the example that I always use. But there have definitely been, you know, works of fiction as well that I've gravitated back towards. A lot of like Sally Rooney's novels, I've, you know, gone back. She has a new one that just came out, and I can tell that that's going to be the same, that if I read it again in 3 years, I'll have a bit of a different response to it.
Isn't that great how we can do that? I remember first picking up a long time ago now, A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery. And I just kind of thought it's kind of a thick book. And I thought, I couldn't get into it. And then just a few months later, it may have been just again, as you were saying, things that have happened in my life, or maybe I was just in a certain kind of mindset, picked it up and could not put it down. And maybe I saw something new in it that second time, and it remained for a long time one of my favorite books, and I have gone back to it since. So yeah, there is that new perspective you can bring sometimes to a book. So I love that. We are speaking with Mattea Roach, host of Bookends on CBC. And it's all about conversations with authors. And so you can let us know if there's a book or author you'd like to recommend for the show. And if there's an author you have always wanted to meet yourself, there's someone you've always dreamed of meeting. If you could meet that one person, give us a call. 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. I did meet Douglas Copeland once, and that was kind of a treat because Generation X was one of those books that I really dug into at that time in your life, right? Sheena is on the line in Victoria. Hi there, Sheena.
Hello. Hi, Mattea.
You've heard the show, have you?
I have.
Yes.
And I want to tell you how much I enjoyed it. I really like your presentation style, that conversation energy that you have going with the author. I thought it was wonderful.
Nice.
And I would, and I really particularly liked that you didn't reveal too much about any book that you were talking about, because that's really important. You want to encourage us to read the book. So if too much of the story is revealed, then we kind of go, oh, well, why bother reading it? I should.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Good. Yeah, no spoilers. Don't reveal too much of it. Just give us a taste.
Yeah,
of that.
your phone line,
well.
Sheena. Pardon me. Can I don't know. There's something about your phone line. It's just quite crackling. It's a little bit hard to hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, and I would like to. I would want to meet Barbara Kingsolver if I ever could, and I highly recommend her book Provincial Summer.
Sheena, I will leave it there. Thank you very much for the recommendation. Barbara Kingsolver, have you read Prodigal Summer?
No, I haven't read any of hers, actually, but I've been meaning to. Demon Copperhead, I have been being told I must read. So I've heard very good things about Barbara Kingsolver.
Are you getting a lot of people come to you and say, you got to pick this up?
Yeah, I have been getting that a fair amount.
Unsolicited.
But it's great. I mean, I've always been on the receiving end of a lot of book recommendations. A lot of my friends and family members are big readers as well. And so one of the things that I've loved the most about being in this new job is I'm getting all these books in to read. And then after I'm done interviewing an author, I can pass that book around to my friends and say, okay, now you read it and we can talk about it.
Yeah. Sheena brings up a really good point there in that you can talk about a book and kind of entice people to pick it up and read it, but not give away so much that there's no more motivation, that you're not going to feel like you're discovering anything. How do you strike that balance?
Well, that's something that we are very deliberate with when we're thinking about what questions we want to ask authors, because the goal for me and for all the producers and the team that works on the show is that we want audiences who haven't read the book to feel encouraged to read it, as Sheena was saying. And to be able to understand and follow the conversation. Books bring up all sorts of broader themes and are, not something that's just kind of separate from our society and the lives that we actually live, right? There's political, social, cultural issues that come up. And so we want to talk to authors about those things. And then the other thing too is if you're someone who has read a book that's being covered, well, you don't probably want to hear just a summary of the plot because you already read the book. You know what happened.
Right.
Right? So the hope is that in sort of not talking too much about, well, this is the actual content of the book, and talking more about what are the themes, what are the issues, maybe what inspired an author, in their personal life to do a certain kind of work. Because we're also covering some memoirs and things on the show that are very deeply personal for folks. That's then a conversation that's accessible to people who've never heard of the book before and people who've read it, they love it, and they want to learn something new that they wouldn't just get from the text.
I really enjoy reading memoirs as well. Let's take another call now. Cody is joining us from Trail. Hi, Cody.
Hello, Michelle. It's a pleasure to talk with you again. And I see you've got Mattea Roach on the show.
We sure do. And is there a book that you'd like to recommend?
So she was my inspiration for when I won the crossword book because of the Jeopardy shout out that I gave her.
They did very well on
September
Jeopardy.
6th.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to talk to you, Mattea, and congratulations on the new show. I've listened to it and I'm a huge fan. And I watched your run on Jeopardy, and I gotta say, you inspire you. You make me proud to be Canadian.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
And the book that I'm reading that I can't really put down is Ken Dryden wrote one about the 72 Summit Series.
Nice.
What I remember, what it felt like, and what it feels like now. And it's a really great book because he talks about the experience of playing in the 72 Summit Series in Moscow. Well, all 8 games, like the 4 that they had in Canada,
Yeah.
and the 4 and the 4 in Russia. And he's actually the author that I would love to meet if I had a chance, because I'm a huge hockey fan, and I'm also I'm a Habs fan. So I would love to talk hockey with him.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I remember
Yeah, and I think that, well, and I was actually, when I was talking with your producer, I was almost tempted to recommend the book that I wrote, but I went with Ken Dryden's book because of the book because I was going to recommend mine that I wrote 6 years ago. But
Oh, wow.
No, I don't want to do that.
Well, lucky for us, we get to speak with you today, Cody, so we can say we've spoken to you as an author. But what a great suggestion there with Ken Dryden. I remember hearing his interviews when he was reflecting on that Summit Series when the anniversary passed. And really, it was just lovely. It was memorable. What a moment. And thanks so much for raising that. The series is What I Remember, What It Felt Like, and What It Feels Now by Ken Dryden. Cody, great call. Thank you very much. And Susan is next in Tawasin now. Hi, Susan. You're a murder mystery fan, are you?
Well, of this author, yes.
Okay.
So the author is Susan Juby, and the first book is Mindful of Murder.
Oh, she's based in Nanaimo.
Yes, she is.
Nice.
That was quick, yeah. And so my niece gave me the first book, and I read it, and then I just gifted my niece back the second book, which I read first, and it's called A Meditation of Murder.
Ooh.
And it's set on Vancouver Island and sort of like a Hollyhock type setting of the retreat center up on Cortez Island.
Around nature, of course.
Yes, yes. And she's in Nanaimo. I live in Tawasin. It's just a 2-hour ferry away. Would be very doable.
You've thought of it, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I love your show, Michelle, but I also love your show, Mattea. And like what you just said a bit earlier, Mattea, about topics that you haven't read the book, but it's so interesting to listen to the interviews of the writer, and I'm sort of getting into memoir myself.
Yeah.
Reading and writing. So yeah.
Susan, so great to hear from you. And that's Susan Juby's books. They're murder mysteries, and she's an Nanaimo author. And let's go through a list. I'll pull up a list of her books. But yes, A Meditation of Murder, Mindful of Murder. Likes the alliteration there, but that's pretty neat that she's just over across the water for you, Susan. Mattea, I guess there are. Can I touch on memoirs with you, because you talked a little bit about that. What do we learn? What can you learn further about someone once they have written a memoir? How do you try and prompt even more revelation?
I think for me, one thing I'm always interested in is, memoirs are very editorial. Like there's kind of a difference between memoir and autobiography, right? Both are people writing about their own life, but I think that autobiography has a bit of a connotation of these are the facts as they happen. They're often presented in order from childhood to the present day, or going kind of chronologically through some sort of experience. Whereas memoir can sometimes be a bit more limited. You know, it might be about just like 1 year in someone's life or
Right.
one very specific event. And it's not always presented chronologically. There might be a little bit more artistic license being taken. And so one thing I always like to ask about, or what I wonder to myself if I'm just reading memoir on my own time and I'm not interviewing the author, is like, what inspired people to, you know, include certain details and exclude others? And there's also the question of like how your perspective on events shifts over time, right? So if you write a memoir, you know, something like Joan Didion, The Year of Magical Thinking, where she started writing that memoir, which is about the death of her husband very shortly after her husband died, you know, that's going to come out a very different book than when people write a memoir with much more distance between the events that they're writing about and the time of writing. You know, that's something interesting, why people choose to do a piece of work, you know, close to an event happening, why they might choose to wait. You know, sometimes authors will say things like, I felt like I needed more distance, or I could only write this book about my parents after becoming a parent myself, or things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that's why I enjoy it too, because it's more of a there's more of a point of view that's revealed there. Let's quickly take a call from Joe in Surrey, also a Jeopardy fan, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm a Jeopardy fan. You know, it's funny because I'm so excited about talking to you, your guest, that I didn't even realize your topic was books. Yes, I've read a book. I was so lucky when she said, "Have you? You know, the show's about books, right?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I just read a book."
What book was it?
Cobalt, Cradle of the Demon Metals.
Oh my!
It's written by Charlie Angus, the name you might recognize. My brother ended up living there from here, and now he lives in this little town of 1800 that used to be like 50,000 people, and they had a silver rush in the 1900s, and there was a stock exchange and a trolley carts and everything, and now it's like a ghost town.
Wow.
And it's a very interesting book on how a town can grow like that and then not.
That is actually very interesting, Joe. Thank you very much for the recommendation. That's Joe in Surrey, Cobalt, Cradle of the Demon Metals, Birth of a Mining Superpower, and it is by the NDP MP Charlie Angus. I just have about 30 seconds left. Mattea, do you see a book in your future?
Writing a book?
Yeah.
But I'm going to take my time. I'm going to let it cook. I did actually a residency in memoir at the BAM Center for Arts and Creativity back in June. And so I have some little fragments and some, you know, halves of chapters rattling around in my Google Drive. But, you know, sometimes things take time, and I'm adjusting to hosting this new show. So
I
don't
can't
hold your
wait.
breath, but eventually.
Oh, I can't wait to see more from you. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for chatting. This was wonderful.
Mattea Roach, host of Bookends.